So the second study is a favorite of mine that I actually stumbled across in The Economist, not in the medical journal. And this is from 2010 by an Italian researcher named Paolo Leonetti. And he looked at kids in Florence eating a typical Western diet, high in fat and sugar and processed carbohydrates, lots of gelato and pizza and pasta. And he compared them with a population in Burkina Faso. And what he found was that at birth, breastfed infants in both populations were almost identically the same, or the same, were almost identical. But as the babies started to migrate to this sort of, or started to graduate to the typical indigenous diet, there were dramatic differences. So the kids in Florence eating the typical Western diet, not surprisingly, had species associated with obesity and allergy and inflammation. And the kids in Burkina Faso eating a very unprocessed plant-based diet, enlivened by the occasional termite, had species associated with leanness and gut health, and they had large amounts of short-chain fatty acids, a substance that is essential for maintaining a healthy gastrointestinal tract. So here again is evidence that the diet, the bacteria follow the diet, not the other way around. I did a study recently in my population. I am an integrative gastroenterologist who came from a typical academic background with lots of prescribing and procedures. And it was really the patients who opened my eyes. A lot of my Crohn's patients were coming in looking great, and I would do their colonoscopy and their inflammation had healed, and I would say, what are you doing? They said, I changed my diet. And in the 23 years since I graduated from medical school, that was a revolutionary thought. The idea that what you eat could actually affect inflammation in your gut. I had never heard that from anyone. In medical school, residency, shocking. And more, I started to see people whose inflammation, and I'm not just talking about people subjectively saying my gas is better, I feel better, but I'm talking about before and after colonoscopy where severe inflammation, ulceration, bleeding, gone, normal. So we embarked on a study. We took 13 patients, 9 with Crohn's disease, 4 with ulcerative colitis, and we put them on something called a specific carbohydrate diet. It's similar to a paleo diet. It basically excludes sugar and processed carbohydrates, and it allows unlimited quantities of fruits and vegetables and some lean protein. And most of the patients noticed significant improvement in about 6 weeks. Of the 13 patients, 12 of them were in remission from the diet. And again, before and after colonoscopy showing incredible differences in their inflammation. So there again, a really clear change of how the diet affects the gut bacteria, how that affects the inflammation. So I'm still not 100% sure on what to tell people in terms of what is the ideal diet to cultivate the ideal microbiome so that we can all have optimal health. In my own life, I struggle between being a gluten-free vegan one day and a paleo the other day. I had a lamb chop yesterday. So what I do know, though, and I think Michael Pollan's 7 sage words, I think, really sum it up the best. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And I think we all sort of agree on those ground rules. So we know, or hopefully you know now, that the diet impacts the microbiome. But the microbiome also greatly impacts your diet. So what we know is that obese mice are able to extract more energy from the exact same amount of calories as their lean counterparts, which strikes me as incredibly unjust. It's like low interest rates for the wealthy. I mean, shouldn't the skinny mice be the ones who pack on the pounds instead of the poor obese mice who are already overweight? And to add insult to injury, the skinny mice, the sort of healthy microbiome equivalent, are able to extract more nutrients from the same food. And I see this in my patients with altered gut bacteria all the time, my patients who suffer from what we call dysbiosis, where the whole ratio of good to bad bacteria is off. That even when eating a healthy diet, they really struggle to extract the nutrients, and they often end up with nutrient deficiencies. So again, very unfair. In fact, we can predict leanness or obesity with 90% accuracy just from looking at the gut bacteria. And if we take microbes from obese mice and we transplant them to germ-free mice, those germ-free mice gain weight. But if we take microbes from lean mice and we transplant them to germ-free mice, they don't gain weight. So clearly, obesity is much more complex than just the food we eat or genetic factors. And like everything else in life, the microbiome, that's where it's at.